Hello, my name is Josh, and I'm the founder of Elephants, and I'm going to be super quickly showing you all a few examples as how Elephants is sort of used today, and do it live, because live demos never go wrong, ever. First things first, for those of you who don't know, if anybody's watching, they're new, Elephants is basically a texting assistant that allows you to super quickly capture details, remember tasks, add notes to relationships in your network. And the goal here is basically to make it super easy for people to remember tasks for other people, to remember details about other people, and just become a better relationship builder in general. I'm going to be showing off the texting platform and then going to show how the data that you text to Elephants ends up going into the actual platform. And yeah, so let's dive right in. Essentially, the texting platform is here, and I'm doing this on my laptop, but obviously this is a phone number, so you can text it with your real phone. And yeah, once you've set up your account, you will get hit with this sort of elephant every time you text it. But when you text for the first time, it's going to ask you for like an email address, and it'll send you a pin. If you're a new user, it'll ask you sort of where you heard about Elephants. That's helpful for me. But once you're in, this is sort of what it looks like. So here's the use case. So let's say I just met with somebody named Brandon Smith, and I want to remember that he's a founder in the area, and I really want to like email this or message this dude on LinkedIn next week. I'm like in the conference, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta do this quickly. What I would do with Elephants is I would open up my phone and I would hit the voice to text feature and talk. So I just met with a founder named Brandon Smith. He is in the Raleigh area, and I want to remember to grab a coffee with him. So please remind me to shoot him a message on LinkedIn next week. So I would just hit send on that message. And again, you can do this on your phone. There's like a little mic button on both Android and iPhone for the talking feature. If you want, you can obviously type all of this. But Elephants now is going to create a contact for Brandon Smith, and it's going to remind me to message him on LinkedIn. I'm realizing the voice to text actually messed up my message a little bit, but I think Elephants will probably figure it out. So yes, it did. It created a contact for Brandon Smith, founder in the Raleigh area, added a task. Let me know if you want to add anything else. Let's just say I remembered some more details and I wanted to quickly capture some stuff, okay? His email is brandon@coolstartup.com, and his phone number is 111-111-1111. I want to remember that he has a dog named Riley. It's a Rottweiler. And I also want to remember that he is super into the automotive industry. And I'd love to send him car recommendations in a few months, since he said he's going to be car shopping in a few months. I could just like start spitting out a random like just stuff, whatever I need to capture. I can just get it out of my head. And I'm gonna fix this because I said coolstartup.com, and the voice to text isn't perfect at all times. And yeah, I'm gonna send this, and it's gonna like magically capture all of it. And again, like normally, if you were using a Notion board or a spreadsheet or something, you'd be going to your said Notion board or your spreadsheet or whatever system, and you'd be trying to like look up Brandon, press edit field, you'd be manually typing all this stuff in. It'd be kind of a mess. But with the Elephants Assistant, it's all handled sort of automatically. And for the sake of this example, I'm going to let it do its thing in terms of adding these notes and stuff. And then I'm going to go ahead and ask it like, hey, I'm about to meet with Brandon. Can you remind me sort of what he's about and something I might want to bring up? And we'll see that Elephants not only can add all this stuff for you, captures context, make edits to the contact for you, but it'll also pull up the information that you want. So it went ahead and did all this stuff. I'm going to, for the sake of this example, I'm going to sort of, I know how the back end of this little brain works. I'm going to ask it to look for a different contact, so that way no longer has Brandon Smith as like in focus. And then when it doesn't find a result, I'm just going to completely like pretend I forgot about it for a while. And now I'm about to get a meeting with Brandon. So do I know someone named James Creek? It's going to do a little contact database search. It's going to find no answers, obviously. And then after that, I'm going to ask it to remind me what I know about Brandon, where I met them, maybe, whatever. So let's just let this respond real quick. And then once we're through this example, I'll show you what this actually looks like in the app. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to pretend it's been let's say it's been a few weeks and I'm about to get a coffee with Brandon. I need a quick refresher. I might text Elephant and be like, hey, I'm about to grab a coffee with Brandon S. Can you remind me something I should bring up during that coffee? And who he is. Okay, cool. So that looks good enough. I'm going to send that. And now let's say again, I'm driving on my way over to the coffee and I say hey, you know who, send a message to Elephants and ask it about Brandon S. I need to remember who they are and something to talk about. And Elephants is going to go ahead and look at Brandon's card, check out tasks I have due, notes that I've saved, the basic contact information, and based on that, it's going to shoot me back a message about Brandon S. I could have just said Brandon, but I think in the sample account I might have another Brandon, so I didn't want it to have to ask for more clarity. But here's a text back. It's going to tell me everything I need to know about Brandon, and it would prep me pretty well for the meeting. So a good topic to bring up during our coffee is sending him car recommendations since he'll be car shopping. And it even brought up the task that I just said, so also don't forget to follow up with him. So yeah, that's the essence of it. It also handles non-people tasks. We're moving into sort of generalized project management too, but for the sake of this demo, this is what I wanted to show. So what does this look like in the actual app? I'm going to pull it up. This is the Elephants app. And in the Elephants app, you will find your database of relationships. You will find a tab that will show you all of your tasks and when they're due and stuff. And then there's another tab for the assistant, but really this is just a link to the phone number to text the assistant. So here's Brandon Smith. I have a few other sample contacts in here, and we'll talk about why in a second. But if I open up Brandon Smith and I go to his details now, we can see based on what I texted it, it's pulled out things like his location, it's pulled out his job title, it's got some description about who he is based on the very short amount of information I gave it. It pulled in his email address, his phone number, it put what city he's based in, which is cool because now if I were to go to my map view, which again, this is just a feature we don't totally need, but it is kind of cool, we'll be able to see that I have a contact, Brandon Smith, in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I don't think any of the sample relationships have nodes, or locations to create nodes, but it's pulled out all this relevant information, which is really helpful for me if I ever need a refresher. I don't have any tags or organizations at this point, but in the app, you can also get the assistant to create organizations. So here's some sample organizations. Let's just say Brandon's cool startup was actually Tech Solutions LLC. I can have that in here as his official relation or as his official company. And if there's other relationships in your database that also work at Tech Solutions LLC, when you open the relationship, you'd be able to see people who I know there, tasks for the organization, and notes. So that's the organization area. There's also tags. So I didn't ask it to add any tags, but I have tags in the sample account like founder, entrepreneur, sales. And if I have other relationships with similar tags, you can click them and see who do I know that's an entrepreneur? Who do I know that's in sales? And you can use these tags to really quickly group relationships. All right, so that's that. Tasks is exactly what you would expect it to be. It's where all the tasks that you've set for a relationship land. You can also add recurring tasks that'll just come up once every X number of days, weeks, months, whatever you prefer. But for the most part, I usually just use individual tasks to remember stuff. You can email a digest or enable a digest that will send you an email of tasks when they come due. But you'll also get texts if you've texted the texting assistant when tasks come due, given you have a basic account or a plus account. And then finally, we have a notes section where notes will sort of live for the relationship. So what's cool about the notes section is if you mention other relationships that you have in the platform, it'll create connections between those. So let's go back to the assistant real quick and text it and say, I just finished my coffee. I want to add a note to Brandon's card that he actually knows Sam Smith from a Formula One racing team he participated in. And I'm gonna just go back to the app and wait, but the assistant's gonna go and it's gonna create a note now that includes the name Sam Smith, who conveniently we have as a relationship. And let's just say it's another founder. But when this note gets added by Elephants, which it's going to any second now, product demos, live demos, they're always risky. One thing to note too, while this loads, is that the Elephants app is a progressive web app, which means it's like a website. So sometimes if you like text the assistant and it does something, it will take like a few seconds, or sometimes you'll have to refresh the app to have the changes reflected. But the texting assistant will always be able to pull back out like live, up-to-date information. There'll never be any delay on the assistant side. Anyways, so now we see Brandon Smith knows Sam Smith from a Formula One racing team, and Sam's relationship is linked here, and I can come to Sam and I can see his details. What's cool too is under Sam's notes, I can see note connections, and I can see like other places where Sam has been referenced. So this is like one of the many things Elephants does to sort of help you keep track of like who knows who's done what with who. And yeah, so that is the notes section of the relationship side of things. The only other thing that I would say is important to sort of cover with the Elephants' actual platform is this tasks view. I rely on this heavily every single day. You have tasks for relationships, you have tasks for organizations, and then you have tasks for projects. I like the all tasks view, and then you can see tasks that are overdue, due today, upcoming, or don't have a due date at all. So usually what like my workflow every morning is I like open Elephants and I look at my tasks for the today, and I sort of look at my calendar and I block out time to do all the tasks that I need to do. But this just lets you see in one super easy spot all the tasks that you have to worry about. And if you open a task, you can like move its due date if you needed to, or you can obviously open the relationship that the task is connected to. The last thing that I'm going to tease, and I'm not going to talk too much about, is this projects feature. We had a number of users asking us why all tasks always had to be connected to a person. Like, what if I'm doing a consulting project and I want to just remember to send an invoice? You can now do projects that aren't really people related, but rather are like work related tasks. So let's say I like added a project for consulting, and I just said holds my tasks for consulting. And let's just make it like a box or something. And I don't think I think I left it as other, didn't I? Let me edit the section that this is in. Oh, I can't. See, projects are very new. So there's a few things that are still being worked out. But under my consulting project, I can like add tasks. I can even create sections. So let's say I had a client named like client A. Now I can like assign tasks to that specific section. So like send an invoice to client A, and let's say I wanted to do that sometime next week. I can now have tasks under projects. And if I were to be in my tasks view and looked at my upcoming, I now have a project related task to send an invoice. And the assistant can recognize and work with projects too. So I could say like, can you add a task to my consulting project for the client A section to remind me to send the scope of work in 2 weeks? And I'm not going to sit here and make you all watch Elephants think and respond, but it's going to go through, it's going to look up which projects I have, it's going to look at the sections of the project, and then it's going to go ahead and add that task for due in 2 weeks. And yeah, so I use this for all my relationships, and then I have projects for sort of my work responsibilities, and I use the assistant essentially to get all of my information into the platform. I texted for literally everything, and it's beautiful too because the assistant processes images. So if I'm at like a conference and somebody gives me a business card, I can just upload a photo of the business card, like literally through my phone. I just create the I use the camera icon and I just take a photo of the business card, send it to Elephants, and then Elephants automatically sort of handles the pulling out of all the relevant information, and it'll create a contact. It doesn't just do images that are relevant to contact information either. If I'm sitting listening to a speaker share information off of certain slides during a session and I have that speaker in my Elephants database, I'll send like a photo of the slide and be like, hey, can you add a note to my person's card that summarizes what they've said on this slide? And it'll add notes to that relationship based on the contents of that photo. And yeah, so I could ramble on and on. I love Elephants. I use it for everything. This is a short little demo as to how the assistant sort of works with the actual platform. If you're interested in giving it a shot, please do shoot us a text at that phone number to get started. You can also get started by creating an account directly on the platform, but the easiest way is definitely just shooting us a text. And yeah, visit us at joinelephants.com, shoot us a message, use the stuff, and let me know if there's any questions, thoughts, concerns, or anything that you have for me. I recorded this on OBS. Where's OBS? There it is.